Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they're afraid it will destroy their illusions. Friedrich Nietzsche once said that. And it's true. How many of us have been told that love will save us? That it'll be pure, redemptive, and unconditional? That the right woman will come along and fix the cracks in your soul, the ones you've been too afraid to face on your own? You've heard it from childhood, in stories, in songs. It's been whispered into your subconscious that one day, someone will come and make everything better. And you believed it, not because you're weak or because you're naive, but because no one ever gave you the tools to see past the illusion. What if that promise was never meant to be kept? What if the love you've been chasing isn't salvation, but strategy? And what if nature, the very force we've been taught to fear or misunderstand, saw all of this coming? Nature doesn't write fairy tales. It doesn't spin romantic stories. Instead, it writes with precision, like a scalpel, cutting through all the masks, the myths, and the emotional comfort zones we wrap around our egos. When nature looked at love, at women, at how we connect with each other, what it saw wasn't pretty. It wasn't polite, but it was real. And here's the thing. Most of us, especially men, aren't ready to hear it. Here's the truth. You don't love her. You love the version of her that reflects the person you wish you were. You love how she makes you feel validated, how her presence reassures you that you're enough. But validation is not love. And what you think is love? It's just a carefully crafted illusion keeping you emotionally obedient. Women? They've had to master power in a world that refused to see them. They weren't handed swords, so they learned to fight in silence. They weren't given control, so they mastered influence. Not because they're inherently manipulative, but because they've had to operate from the shadows while men claimed the spotlight. And that's where the modern man still misses the mark. You confuse strategy with softness. You mistake adaptability for innocence. You think she's fragile. You think her love is unconditional. You think her tenderness is purity. But it's not. It's power. Refined, rehearsed, and executed with precision. While you spill your emotions and call it vulnerability, she's scanning your every word, looking for leverage. While you dream of soulmates, she's calculating the cost of closeness, weighing need against control, desire against influence, not maliciously, instinctively. Because she learned long ago that the person who sees the game but never speaks of it, they win. What about you? You were raised to idealize, to put her on a pedestal so high that it blinds you. You don't see the strategy because you don't want to. You'd rather believe in the dream, the muse, the good girl, the healer. But what if those roles? They're masks. Masks she learned to wear because they work. Nature exposed the lie. Not to destroy women, but to destroy the stories men tell themselves about women. Because as long as you believe she's morally superior by nature, as long as you think her affection is without motive, you'll keep surrendering your agency in exchange for emotional security. And she'll accept that power, not because she hates you, but because the system taught her to use it. You're not being loved, you're being handled. And the scariest part? You like it. You like the comfort. You like the worship. You like the emotional anesthesia that lets you avoid facing yourself. Because once you stop needing her to be your redemption, you'll have to face the parts of you that you've been hiding behind your need. And that's what terrifies you. not heartbreak, but the realization that you're not whole without her. But fear? Fear wears many disguises, and one of its favorites is romantic devotion. You think you're loving her purely, that you're offering yourself freely. But dig deeper. What you're really offering isn't love. It's bargaining. You're saying, if I give you my heart, will you fix the parts of me I'm afraid to face? You're not looking for a partner. You're looking for a solution. And while you give everything, your soul, your time, your identity, she's listening. Not to your words, but to your needs. Not because she's cruel, but because every vulnerability you expose becomes a map of your emotional pressure points, and she learns them quickly. Not to hurt you, but to position herself in your mind where she becomes indispensable. Nature saw this coming. He understood that what we call love is often a subtle contest for emotional real estate. Who controls the rhythm of closeness? Who withholds first? Who gives in last? These aren't questions of affection. They're questions of power. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The one who needs less controls more. You give her everything. Time, attention, identity. You call that honesty. She gives you just enough to keep you chasing. She calls that connection. But it's not connection. It's choreography. We've built a culture where women are taught to influence without appearing to lead, and men are taught to submit while thinking they're conquering. It's not her fault. It's not your fault. It's the result of centuries of conditioning where men dominated the outer world and women mastered the inner one. And now, in modern love, you walk straight into the trap, smiling. She doesn't need to argue. She only needs to suggest. She doesn't need to demand. She needs to desire. And by doing so, she shapes you. She shapes your decisions, your identity, all while never raising her voice. That's not manipulation. That's mastery. You call her mysterious because you don't understand her. You don't understand her because you've never questioned your own myths. You still think love is about unity. She knows love is about leverage, and when she pulls away, it haunts you. Not because she's gone, but because your reflection left with her. Nature would say, you never loved her. You loved the way she made you feel about yourself. She was the stage where you performed your worth. Now the stage is gone, and you're left with silence and the truth. And here's the truth. She didn't deceive you. She simply stopped playing the role you wrote for her. You didn't see her. You saw your idea of her. And when she stopped performing that role, you called her cold. You called her cruel. But maybe the real betrayal was yours, because you loved a fantasy, and you expected her to live inside it. Nature didn't condemn women. He condemned men who refused to grow up. Men who wanted muses instead of mirrors. Men who begged for angels instead of daring to face human beings in all their glorious, terrifying complexity. If you're ready to stop blaming her, then you're ready to look at yourself. Not with guilt, not with shame, but with clarity. And from that clarity, something radical can begin. It's not the end of love, but it's transformation. You were taught that love is the highest virtue, that to love selflessly is the mark of a good man. But what if that selflessness is just another mask for emotional dependency? What if, beneath all the poetic gestures and grand declarations, there's a quiet fear? A fear that says, if I don't give everything, she won't stay. So you offer more. You compromise more. You erase parts of yourself to become what you think she wants. Not because you love her, but because you fear being without her. This isn't nobility. It's submission disguised as romance. And while you think you're being brave, she feels something else entirely. Control. Not through force, but through presence. Through your willingness to orbit around her approval. Because here's the truth nature hinted at that so few are willing to hear. Love, when rooted in need, is never equal. She may not ask you to change, but you change anyway. She may not demand your obedience, but you give it anyway. Why? Because you've convinced yourself that her acceptance is your salvation. But she didn't ask to be your savior. She was just being herself, and you turned that into a mirror for your worth. When that mirror cracks, you don't just feel loss, you feel collapse. Because it wasn't love you were protecting, it was the story. The story that says, if she loves me, I am whole. If she stays, I matter. But stories aren't truth, and when reality intrudes, you call it betrayal. Nature would call it awakening. The lie isn't that she has power. The lie is that you didn't see it. You called her gentle, but she was observant. You called her nurturing, but she was strategic. You thought she surrendered, but she was choosing, always choosing. Because she understood something you never did. The one who sees the dynamic clearly holds the key. And now, finally, the illusion begins to crack. You remember the moments when she smiled, but now, behind that smile, you see something calculating. You remember how your smallest emotional shifts were answered before you even voiced them. You thought she was intuitive, and she was. But her intuition wasn't just a gift. For her, it was survival. It was her way of staying a step ahead in a world that never gave her the power to confront, only the power to shape. This isn't about blame. This is about reality. You live in a world where love is sold as mutual surrender, but practiced as mutual leverage, where vulnerability is branded as a virtue, but used as currency. And the moment you realize this, you either grow up or you break down. Most people choose to break. They go back to the myth. They look for another muse, another emotional performance partner. They say, this time will be different. But it won't be, because the roles haven't changed. Only the actors have. And until you stop needing her to play the part, you'll never meet the person behind the mask. But what happens when the mask is gone? When you stop seeking roles and start seeing reality? You begin to notice what was always there. Not manipulation, not malice, but instinct. A woman who understands her lack of institutional power, mastering relational power instead. Not because she wants to control you, but because this is the only power she's ever been allowed to have. So ask yourself, not if she's ready to love you. Ask if you're ready to see her without the myth. Because only then can you see yourself, and only then does love stop being a story and become a revolution. If this opened your eyes, if it made you uncomfortable in a way that felt true, then share it, like it, and subscribe. Not for entertainment, but because you're done with illusions and ready to see things as they are. If this transformed you, even just a little, help it reach someone else who's ready to wake up. This isn't just about romantic love. It's about how we relate to each other in every aspect of life. It's about breaking free from the illusion that love, power, and influence are all things that come from a place of purity, innocence, or mutual surrender. We've been sold a narrative that love is supposed to be about selflessness and sacrifice, about giving and receiving without question. But what if that narrative is exactly what has kept us trapped? What if love, in its truest form, isn't about being validated or seeking comfort through another person's affection? What if it's about being seen for who we truly are, without the masks? What if we started seeing love as a dynamic of power, not a passive exchange? We've been taught to place love on a pedestal, to expect it to heal us, to save us from our loneliness, our insecurities, and our fears. But the reality is far more complex. Love can't save you. No one else can do that for you. The truth is, you have to save yourself first. You have to love yourself first. And only then can you experience love for what it truly is, an exchange of mutual respect, understanding, and connection. The dynamic between men and women has been shaped by centuries of social conditioning. Men were taught to dominate the outside world, while women were expected to dominate the emotional realm. These roles have created a skewed perception of love, where women are seen as emotional, nurturing, and pure, while men are expected to be strong, unyielding, and detached. But what if these roles are outdated? What if these perceptions don't serve us anymore? Imagine a world where men and women are free to be complex, where vulnerability doesn't have to be tied to weakness, and strength doesn't have to be tied to silence. A world where love is no longer about control, where both partners are equal, where both can show their power, their vulnerability, their authenticity, without fear of judgment or rejection. That's the future we should be aiming for. A future where we see each other, not as projections of our own needs and insecurities, but as human beings with their own depth, their own struggles, their own desires. When we can see the other person for who they truly are, not through the lens of our own fantasies, then and only then can we experience real love. But in order to do that, we have to start questioning everything we've been taught about love and relationships. We have to stop looking for someone to save us, to fix us, to complete us. We have to start looking inward. We have to understand that true power lies in our ability to stand on our own, to be whole and complete within ourselves, without relying on anyone else to validate our existence. Only then can we truly connect with others in a way that is real and meaningful. Only then can we love in a way that is not about need, but about choice. Only then can love become a partnership, not a transaction. And that's the journey we're all on. It's not easy, it's not quick, but it's worth it. Because when we stop needing love to be something it was never meant to be, we can finally experience it for what it truly is, a shared understanding between two people who are whole on their own and choose to come together. Not because they need each other, but because they want each other. So, what's next? If this message resonates with you, if it feels uncomfortable in a way that challenges your old beliefs, then it's time to face the truth. It's time to stop living in the myth and start living in the reality of what love can truly be. Share this, like it, subscribe, and start your own journey of awakening. Not for me, but for you. For your growth. For your evolution. It's time to stop living in the shadows of the illusion and start stepping into the light of clarity. When you do, love will stop being something you search for and become something you already have within you. Because you are enough. You've always been enough. And when you understand that, love will no longer be a dream. It will be your reality.